Don't rock.
Mark and Paulette here, the two travelers in Mexico, and today we are going to talk about inflation in Mexico and what's that like. Currently, there is inflation in Mexico. It's at 7.5%, and it's being mostly it has to do with food and items like that. The cost of going to the market is where we see most of the inflation.
Limes, avocados.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a big rise.
Staples of the Mexican diet, tortillas, things like that are going up. But anyway, we're going to talk about that. Where we're seeing most of the cost is, like I was saying, the food mercados and all of the things that Paulette just mentioned. Those costs are going up because they're being charged more. And the interesting thing is some of it has to do with the whole thing going on between Russia and Ukraine, because Mexico buys a lot of their fertilizer from the Ukrainians. So there's been a bit of a shortage of that, and so I'm not, that probably has something to do with the rising cost of food, but Mexico is getting together a plan to start producing more of its own fertilizer.
Well, hopefully it's not bad fertilizer that they're purchasing.
Oh. The sun's coming out.
We're hitting the season now where it's going to start raining maybe once or twice, maybe 3 times during the day. It usually hits around June. Right now we've got the sun, but right next to the sun is a big gray cloud.
Big gray cloud. So the next item, we'll talk about avocados as an example. Now, avocados a year ago were about $3 a kilo. Since then, they've gone up to about $4 a kilo here in Mexico. But, if you think about it, that's still better than paying the $8 or so dollars in the U.S. that you would be paying for those very same avocados.
Some people say that they're paying like $3 an avocado.
Really?
In the U.S. Yeah, depending on where you're living.
Yeah.
And maybe in Canada it's the same thing. I don't know in Canada.
Yeah. Part of that is because the U.S. at one point at least temporarily banned the import of avocados from Mexico, so that could be the part of the reason for the cost rise in the U.S.
I remember watching a long time ago on that show, I forget what it was called, where they were talking about cartels and stuff like that. This was before we even moved to Mexico.
Yeah.
And they talked about, avocado growers.
Uh-huh.
And I forget what the name of that show was. Vice. I think that was it. And they talked about avocado growers being extorted by cartel people and things like that on having to give them a high percentage. Yeah. Otherwise bad things would happen. But that was before moving to Mexico. However, I doubt that that's changed.
Mm-hmm. But you never know.
Never know.
So, next up, we're going to talk about the cost of gas. Now, over the last year, the Pemex, where we normally get our gas, has gone up about 2 pesos a liter, which is about, if you figure a liter is 3.8 liters to the gallon. So you figure that's about 76 pesos, but then you divide that by 20, and so really it's about 38 U.S. cents per gallon is what the costs have gone up. And currently, as of today, U.S. it's about $4.17. Interesting thing, I talked to our dentist, and he was saying that his costs have gone up because almost all of his products come from either the U.S. or Europe.
Oh, really?
Somewhere. Now, the U.S. has a higher inflation rate. Currently, it's about 8.5, I think. And it depends where in Europe, but on average it's about 7.5, the inflation rate there. But so he's having to pay more for the materials that he needs to do his job.
But honestly, a lot of people come here to get work done. Our friend Todd just came to Leon to get some dental work done too. And I've had friends in the U.S. that have come here to have dental work too. So
Yeah.
even though the cost has gone up, it's still
a lot cheaper than getting
incredibly-
it done in the U.S.
yeah. And Mark and I talked about that in a previous video when we were getting some dental work done.
Yeah. And you can get it done all at once rather than having to spread it out sometimes over a couple of years, depending on what your medical insurance allows you to do.
True, right? Yeah.
And here's another, a little bit of a factor involved in all of this. Expats coming here from whatever country they come from, their denomination fluctuates against the peso. So you can sort of curb some of that inflation if you are able to do your exchange rate when as an example, the peso to dollar rate is better for you, like when it's 22 or so pesos to the dollar.
Right.
If you can find a way to exchange that, put it into a Wise account or transfer it to a Mexican bank somewhere, you can kind of hedge against that.
Well, and then we know some friends that recently have bought a house, and the same thing happened to us when we were buying our house, remember?
Yeah.
It was at a pretty good, we thought we were going to get our house for, I forget what it was, and we ended up paying like what?
3,150,000 pesos, which was the same as what our friend paid. However, it only cost him 135,000 US.
Mm-hmm.
Our exchange rate was worse.
Ours was like 157.
Right, and it cost us 157,000 US for 3,150,000 pesos.
Right, but see, the thing is, what are you going to do? You're in escrow. You're in all that.
Yeah.
You can't. You just keep your fingers crossed that it'll stay where it is. But if it fluctuates,
Yeah.
oh well.
Keep in mind, that even at an inflation rate of 7.5%, I mean, you're paying that on a product that very often costs about half what it does in the U.S.
Well, except for some imported things.
Except for imported things, those prices have gone up too.
Right, and remember the tax is what
Oh, yeah.
percent? That's pretty high.
Yeah, the IVA tax here is like 16.9% or something.
Oh, it is
like that.
16.9.
Yeah,
Wow.
it is high, but
Okay.
the price you see on the shelf is what you pay. That's tax included here.
Okay.
And the other thing, and this really surprised me, is depending on where you're at in Mexico, housing costs are up by anywhere from 10 to 25%.
Wow.
And I was really surprised by that because in San Luis, it doesn't seem like it's changed that much. But I suspect that the higher costs, the areas are going to be a higher percentage or really more of the major cities and the expat communities.
Yeah, like San Miguel,
Yeah.
maybe
Chapala.
Puerto Vallarta.
Puerto Vallarta.
A lot of those touristy
Yeah.
places by the beach and stuff like that. Although San Miguel's not by the beach. Ajijic,
No.
places like that.
Yeah. So.
Because those are more of an expat community, so the prices are driven up.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I mean, there is, but there isn't. I mean, if you like that kind of a community and stuff like that, where you're going to be speaking the English language, and it's an easy, what do you call it? Like when you come in, it's an easy
Soft landing is
soft
what we
landing,
call it.
right? But all that inflation and things like that in those areas make it harder for a lot of the locals.
That's
because
true.
of the cost.
Yeah. So, a lot of times locals that were born and raised in that area are being
Right.
pushed out because they can't afford the prices.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and that's one of the reasons why really you and I chose a place like San Luis or even Morelia, because there aren't large expat communities here, and we're not going to really economically negatively affect the people around us.
Right.
So.
Agreed.
And part of it may be due to, I was reading an article that our friend Alan sent me, and housing demand is just up in Mexico. A few years ago there were an average of 5 adults per household. That has since dropped to 3.5. So people are getting out, moving out, looking for places to live. And so that could be part of it too. It's just the demand on housing is up as well.
Yeah, and like anything, even when we lived in the U.S., it was kind of the same thing there. I mean, where, people were moving in, people were moving out, for cheaper cost of living. They're moving further out so that they could afford it, where working people or whatever, wanted to stay in the city, of course, and the prices were being driven up. And I think that's happening today in the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, the cost of housing is
Yes.
incredibly high right now.
And it's going on here in Mexico too.
Yeah.
So it's not specific to the U.S. It goes on in Mexico, and I think it really probably goes on all over the world wherever you have major metropolitan areas.
Right.
Have anything more you'd like to add?
Is that all?
That's all.
That's it for this video?
That's it for this video.
It's a short video.
Yeah.
Well, let me bring Mama Brindle in here. Brindle! Come here, girl. Come here. Come here. Say hi to everybody. I don't know if you can see her. Hi, Mama. Hi, Mama. Here's Fiona. Fiona always has to get in. She's, as I call it, an attention whore.
Yeah.
But Mama Brindle's doing good. Babies are doing good. They're 2 weeks today.
Yep.
And their eyes are starting to open. One's already open. The other ones are getting slits now.
Getting to that point, yeah.
Yeah. So.
And they're eating well, obviously, because they're looking like a bunch of little sausages.
They are.
So.
They are. They actually look like little piggies to me.
Yeah.
I had piggies before once, and they got that little pink nose, and they're just so short and squatty and chubby. They remind me of little piggies.
Yeah.
Piglets. Yeah. So, all right. Leave comments below. If we're wrong on anything, let us know. If we're right on anything, let us know. What else? What else?
I think that's about it,
All
other
right.
than your closing.
Other than, as I always say, from the two travelers in Mexico.
What she did.
Bye, guys.
Bye.